Okay, welcome to History 302, America in the 60s. I am your professor, Patrick Jones, coming to you live from Omaha and Legends Coffee Shop. It's just me and one of my very favorite baristas over there, Nikki Champ. She's doing some kind of work, but it's just us hanging out here right now. And I wanted to just make a brief video to welcome you to the class, introduce myself, and let you know a few things just about how we'll be working starting today over the next three weeks. So the first thing is that I'm glad that you're here and are interested in learning more about the 1960s. It's a great topic and lots to learn and lots of interesting intersections with the world that we're living in today. So this won't be a history that's just removed from ourselves in some kind of interesting past that we go to visit, but it should bring up a whole lot of questions about democracy, justice, culture, economics, politics, social relations, sexuality, gender, race, class, etc. That'll be meaningful to you. So I hope that's the case, and I hope that this is what I would call a usable past, and that, in fact, it has the chance, I think, as a class to be transformative for you, as it was for me when I first learned about this a long time ago. Let me first just tell you a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Professor Patrick Jones. I teach in the Department of History and what we call at UNL the Institute for Ethnic Studies. And the Institute houses the Native American Studies program, the Latino and Latin American Studies program, and the African and African American Studies program. And I teach and am the liaison, which is our word for the head of the African and African American Studies program currently. So essentially what I do is modern U.S. history and race relations and African American studies. My primary fields of interest are the 1960s. I write a lot about the civil rights and black power era and the 60s more generally. And so that's kind of where I'm oriented at the university. I've been here 14 years. As you can see, I live over in Omaha, but teach at the university in Lincoln. And so you'll be hearing from me periodically from a variety of on-location spots here in Omaha, not from Lincoln. In addition to that, I was born in Baltimore and I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I went to Kenyon College, an undergrad liberal arts institution, and then I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I got my PhD in modern U.S. history and African American studies. I taught at a small liberal arts college, Allegheny College in Pennsylvania, before coming over here to Nebraska, and I guess at 14 years, that make me close to a full-fledged Nebraskan or something like that. I don't know. I've been here long enough to feel like I have a good sense of the place, even though I come from a very different place. Beyond that, I have two daughters, a soon-to-be 3-year-old tomorrow, Mavis, and then a 6-year-old going on 7, Zora. And so I'm a dad, and I like music quite a bit, playing it, listening to it, interacting with it, grooving to it, and a whole lot of other things that maybe along the way you'll learn some more about. But I am a human out here, and I know you are a person out there as well, and so one of the key things is for us to keep that in mind as we go on this journey together through the online interface of Canvas, by and large. I did want to just say too, what interests me about the 1960s, as I was growing up and trying to figure my own place in the world out, and understand why there were a variety of inequalities in the society that often talked about these abstract ideals of democracy and liberty and justice and things like that. And then I would see around me racial inequality, class inequality, issues and differences between genders, and issues around sexuality, issues around war and peace, etc., the environment. I became interested and concerned about those tensions and very much interested as a young person in trying to think about them and become active in figuring them out. And history gave me a way to do that, to try to understand the roots of, I'm making a smoothie over here, so it's getting loud, the roots of those issues and tensions, and to help me develop some skills to think about the present and how we got here, so that I could think in some new and complicated ways about where we might go from here. So I think history is really powerful in that regard, and the 60s in particular opened up a lot of different ways to think about those issues through the civil rights movement, through the women's movement, the gay liberation movement, the environmental movement, the Chicano movement, the American Indian movement, the student movement, the anti-war movement, formal politics with Kennedy and Johnson's Great Society, and the presidential race in 1968 that featured Robert Kennedy. And so I'm really interested in how social change happens, how meaningful and sustained social change happens, and what I would call the interaction between formal politics that happens through our institutions that are established mediators of democracy, so everything from Congress and the presidency and our court system down to city councils, school boards, et cetera. So those are the kinds of formal political actions and institutions that we've set up to try to mediate politics and the difference in our society. I'm interested in the way those formal politics intersect with informal politics, the ways that citizens and non-citizens act outside of those institutions, often in an attempt to put pressure on those formal institutions to respond if they're not responding or listening. So this is where we get protest politics, social movement politics, marches, demonstrations, even more radical and revolutionary kinds of action as well, or countercultural actions that aren't really interested in the institutions themselves and are just interested in creating a parallel and alternative way of living and being outside of those institutions. So I'm interested in the way formal politics and informal politics interact with each other, and the last piece of it would be cultural politics too. What part and role do cultural politics, from music to poetry to literature to theater to graphic design, play to fashion, play in how to in social change and change in consciousness, change in society, and how does cultural politics interact with institutional, formal and informal politics. So that's how I kind of come to the 1960s. I'm really interested in this change dynamic. The 60s is, as you know, a decade where there's a lot of tumult and a lot of change that happens, as we're gonna see. You do have an assignment for today, in addition to the content, and I'd like you to do essentially what I just did. I'd like you to make a 2 or 3 minute video that you can use your laptop, you can use your iPhone, whatever is available to you. Make a basic video of yourself that lets us see who you are and introduces yourself by telling us a little bit about who you are, why you're taking the class, and what particularly interests you about the 1960s era. That could be something specific, like Martin Luther King. It could be something broader, like you're interested in music. And maybe it's multiple things, but let us know, why you're taking the class and what kinds of things in the 1960s you're interested in learning more about. When you do that, then I'm going to open in the discussion area of Canvas a thread, and if you could go and post that there by dinner time tonight, about 6 o'clock, I'd appreciate that. That'll be a way for us to get to know each other a little bit, and again, for us to remember that we are actual people out here, and not just names on the Canvas site. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was just a little bit about the class and how it's going to work. This is an online class, so we're doing it this way, not sitting in a classroom together. I'll be straight with you that this is my first time doing an online class. I like teaching in a classroom. I like the interactivity with students. And I guess I'm a little bit hesitant and nervous about how this is gonna go. We're gonna keep it pretty basic because it's a 3-week class in terms of the technological stuff. But I do want to stress that as an online class, that gives us some possibility. It means that you can access the content and do your work from any place. That's helpful for me. For instance, I don't have to drive over to Lincoln every day to be in a classroom with you, and there's a convenience in that. I think the downside as a student is that there's a kind of responsibility that you have when you have to come into a classroom and sit with your fellow students and you're in front of me looking at you, and that puts some pressure on you to be responsible to the work. This class is largely going to be a self-starting class where you will be doing the work online and delivering it to me periodically online. You'll do a little bit of interacting, but you'll largely be working on your own. And so it's easy to shake off your responsibility in the online world because there aren't eyes on you and we aren't present with each other every day in the same way that we are in a classroom setting. So I just want to, give a little bit of a warning right up off the bat here that it's really important in this class that you be on top of things and that you be self-starting and that you get the work done on a daily basis. That flows into the second point, which is that this is a 3-week summer class, and this is a 300 level class. So the level is fairly high of work that we're doing. It's advanced level class. And we only have 3 weeks. So that means a 3-week class every day is 1 week of work in a traditional full semester class. So again, it's tempting. It's a summer class. It's an online class. There will be days where you have other things going on, where you want to be outside playing with your friends or what have you. And you might be tempted to blow off work for that day, but just keep in mind that if you blow off 1 day of work, that's a week's work that you've blown off. And it's going to be really, really hard to get back on track. As I sometimes say to students in a 3-week class, it's like, Civil War history, it's like Sherman marching to the sea. He tore this just huge path through the South. There was no stopping. They just kind of kept on going until they hit the sea. And that is essentially us. We've got 3 weeks, and we are marching from beginning to end. We don't have a lot of time to pick folks up who stumble along the way. I'm going to do my best if you need me to help you out, but there's just not a lot of wiggle room, particularly for missed days, lost days. And so a 3-week summer class really is a full-time job, and so you really have to commit to that. Normally we would be in class 2.5 hours or so, 2 to 3 hours each day, and then on top of that you would have several hours of work. So you should expect to do several hours of work every day, that classroom time plus other time. And so that's your commitment in the class. That's going to be a lot of reading. It's going to be occasionally watching documentaries, listening to some music, looking at images, looking at little videos from me like this, etc. But you got to do the work. In terms of getting in touch with me, I won't be holding regular office hours in my office instead, and I won't be holding online office hours. That has not seemed to work very well. So it'll just be as you need me, holler at me through email, and I will do my best to respond to you as quickly as I can. I'll try to be in touch within 24 hours of you writing to me with something with the class. Happy to hear from you, happy to help you out if you're struggling or have questions about anything, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with me even though we're in an online class. In terms of your assignments, every day that you will have on Canvas the day's resources that you'll work through, and those will be posted. Today's are up, and you want to work through that material. In addition, you're going to have at the end of each week, there's 3 weeks, so at the end of each week, you'll have an exam over the material we covered that week. That exam will cover everything. So all resources, all materials are fair game on those exams. The exams will be a mix of different types of questions. And that exam will be available to you starting at midnight on Friday, and it will be due to me no later than 6 p.m. on Sunday. It's going to be a timed exam, so once you can decide to do it at any time you want, late Friday night after midnight, anytime on Saturday, anytime during the day, on Sunday, as long as you get it done by 6 p.m. and turned in to me by 6 p.m. on Sunday. There will be a time limit, so once you open the exam and access it in Canvas, the time limit will start, and you'll have a set amount of time to complete all of the sections of the exam. And then it'll be turned in digitally through the Canvas site as well. In addition, each week you will have one other brief assignment, so every day you'll be reading things, looking at things, listening to me lecture, mini lectures, that kind of thing. And then you'll also have once a week, usually midweek, a brief assignment that'll ask you to do something. Each one will be a little bit different. Find a resource related to one of the topics that we're looking at, or do some interactivity with a discussion board with some of your students over a key question or over other resources that you've been looking at, etc. And so there'll be 3 of those, each one midweek as well. So your daily work, an exam at the end of each week. Each exam is not cumulative, meaning it's just covering the material the previous week. So the first exam will cover the material from week 1. The second exam will cover the material from week 2, and the final exam will cover the material from week 3. And then you'll have these brief assignments. And that's how you will get graded in the class on those assignments. Those are all designed for you to demonstrate to me that you've been keeping up with the work, that you've been engaging the material and the ideas in them, and that you can articulate back to me what you've learned in a few different ways. In addition to the resources, I'll be doing this periodically each day, not every day, but most days. There'll be 1 or 2 of these short videos from me talking about some aspect of the history that we're learning. It'll often be me talking over a PowerPoint, but sometimes me just doing this and talking with you. I'll try to engage some of the resources that you're reading and looking at, as well as adding new information that's not available to you from the resources that you've looked at. So all of those pieces, the assigned resources, are critical, including those video discussions. Those will be available to you through Canvas as well. So I think that is it for this initial introductory video. If you have any basic questions for me about the class, feel free to email me. My email is pjones2@unl.edu. That 2 is really important because there's a pjones1 over on East Campus, and that's not me. So pjones2@unl.edu. Head over, download the syllabus, give a good look at that. Let me know if you have any basic questions about the syllabus and how it's working. And then today we will be starting by looking at the roots of the 1960s in 1950s America. And so important work to set the table, to understand where we're starting out before we move into the full content on the 1960s. So you've got some resources to look at from there. There's another video that'll be up here shortly. And otherwise I'm looking forward to being with you this summer, and talk to you soon.